Hi everyone, I'm Jalene Andrews, and this is The Law Down, where personal injury attorney Brooke Goff shares advice on important legal topics. Brooke, welcome back.
Nice to be here.
All right, so today's topic is understanding your insurance policy. First, how do you know what is even part of your policy?
Most people don't. I've never seen a company or a situation where people just throw money at something because people say you have to and they don't even understand what they're paying for. You have multiple parts of we're talking about auto insurance today. Homeowners is a whole nother thing, but you have liability, you have underinsured, uninsured motorist coverage, you have MedPay, and you have collision. Those are the four we're going to talk about. There's other coverages about comprehensive. We're not going to talk about those. Firstly, people always say, Brooke, I have full coverage. I don't know what that means. The full coverage just means you have insurance. Welcome to what you're supposed to have. But it's actually frightening because I do a segment on Bomba every week, and people call in and they're like, listen, I have full coverage. I thought that meant I had full coverage. That means that if I get in an accident, I'm fully covered no matter what happens to me. No, it doesn't. You're only covered up to the amount of the limits you have. So these people think that they're just covered to the moon and they pay an insurance. They're not. So this is a failure of our agents. It's a failure of our insurance. It's a failure of Department of Insurance, in my personal opinion. You have to educate people, and it's a shame that a personal injury attorney has to get on your station, pay for ad space to tell people this is what you need to know about the policy you have. So in the event you're in an accident, this is how you use it, right? It's sad that we shouldn't be doing this, but we're going to do it. So liability means if you cause an accident, then that's how much you're covered for. So John Smith is driving on the street, okay? Negligent, takes his eyes off the road, runs somebody over, and she breaks both of her legs. John was on his phone, so we'll call that, we'll just say, for the argument's sake, the case is worth, I'll throw out a number, $800,000. We'll just throw out a number. I'm not saying that there's all kinds of variables, but John, though, thinks he has full coverage. Well, guess what John has? The state minimum of $25,000. But John also owns a car, a boat, a beach house, and a house in Connecticut, and has a job where he makes $250,000 a year. He thought he was fully covered. By the way, he hit her with a Beamer, right? So now John is fully exposed to that woman just because he thought he had full coverage because nobody told him otherwise. So that's liability. Your liability coverage has to be enough to cover you in the event that you're at fault for something. Accidents happen. It's why I'm employed, right? Accidents happen. So my recommendation is look at your total assets that you own, how much you make a year, the whole thing, and then multiply that by 2. And that's probably, by what you own, I mean equity. That's probably what you should be protected.
So people are insuring themselves way underneath what
they think they're fully covered. They don't understand what the numbers mean. So when I say full coverage, that means nothing to me. You're not fully covered. Most people are. I bet you 95% of Connecticut is not fully covered, meaning that they have exposure. I bet that many. So my recommendation is a minimum of $100,000, $300,000. Who cares about the state minimums? Listen, you can afford the car, you can afford the Starbucks cup of coffee, you can afford the extra 50 or 60 bucks it adds. Trust me, $50 or $60 is cheaper than paying a judgment of $500,000 and $600,000 later. And it happens. And you don't think it's going to happen to you until it does. That's your liability. Underinsured, uninsured motorist coverage is next. That is if somebody hits me without insurance or without enough insurance, if they have the 25 grand, how can I protect myself? Well, I always tell people, what is it worth if you cannot do anything or make a living for a year? What are your bills? What are your medicals? Now add your medicals on top of that. The whole thing, trust me, this happens to people. It happens to people all day, every day. It's why I'm employed, okay? And let me tell you, until it happens to you, you don't want to be that person that said, oh, I should have. Right. So underinsured, uninsured motorist coverage typically equals your liability coverage. Again, a minimum of 100. I tell people, beef it up as much as you can. I'll tell you this, if it's between the BMW M8 versus the lower end BMW, one stage down, then nobody will know the difference really. Pay for the insurance, right? Really second to last is MedPay. Free medical coverage. In Connecticut, I mean, all this the politics, the politicians are all up there making all kinds of promises. We don't know what they're going to be able to meet, not meet. We have, our attempt at universal health care. Some people say it works, it doesn't. You have Husky insurance in Connecticut that most providers don't take. So if you're in an accident, how are you going to get care? So MedPay is free medical money from your policy. It's what you have control over. So I recommend a minimum of $5,000. It's very cheap. It is. And the other piece is collision. Okay. How much can you afford to pay if you have to pay to fix your car. Because at the end of the day, you can get a $1,000 deductible, but if you can't come up with $1,000, how good is that, right? So collision's the last big one. I would say try to keep that limit as low as possible, because if somebody hits you without insurance, you're on the hook for the whole thing.
All right, Brooke, as always, thank you for your advice. All right, and remember, you can always learn more by visiting gofflawgroup.net. For Connecticut's Morning Buzz, I'm Jillian Andrews. We'll see you next time.